Is this the same guy? What's going on? Wait, what?
Yeah, no, he's been out there for like an hour now.
Oh my god, did you call cops?
I did. Nobody did anything.
I was about 7 years old at the time, and my brother was about 10. Our dad worked construction out of town, so for weeks at the time, it was just my mom, my brother, and me alone in the house. It was an old house with a strange upstairs layout. At the top of the stairs, my parents' bedroom was immediately to the right. To the left stretched a narrow hallway. My brother's room was at one end, mine at the other, with the bathroom across from my room. At both ends of the hallway were an old glass paneled door that stayed locked almost all the time. One led to a balcony overlooking the front yard, the other opened up to the back porch. Even during the day, that hallway felt unsettling. At night, it was worse. My mom and my brother both had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew because I was a light sleeper. One night after my mom had sent us upstairs to bed, my brother started walking towards his room. Then suddenly he stopped. He turned around and came back towards the bathroom. "I'm gonna pee first," he said quietly. My mom barely looked up. Then he added, "The past few nights, I've been too scared to walk down here alone." That got my attention immediately. Mom still didn't react. Maybe she thought he was trying to scare me. Then he said the words I will never forget. "I keep seeing a man wearing stripes standing at the end of the hallway." My entire body went cold. My mom brushed it off and said nothing, but I believed him. From that night on, every time I went upstairs after dark, I would sprint from the stairs straight into my bedroom. I refused to look down the hallway. I refused to look through those glass doors. Because a part of me thought I'd see him, standing there, watching. Years passed and eventually I forgot about it. Then when I was around 18, my mom and I were driving somewhere, talking about the dog we used to have named Max. We were laughing about how destructive he was, chewing on shoes and tearing things apart. Then out of nowhere she said, "Do you remember that night I answered the door for the cops and Max ran into the kitchen and ripped open the dog food bag?" I looked at her confused. The cops? Police had never came to our house. We lived in a quiet rural area of West Virginia. Nothing ever happened there. I asked her what she was talking about. She immediately looked uncomfortable. Then she said, "Oh right, I never told you because you were too young," and what she said next changed everything. One night while my dad was away for work, she woke up hearing noises outside her bedroom window. When she looked out, a man was standing there, staring directly into the room. She turned on the lights and he took off running. She grabbed my dad's pistol and called the police. When officers arrived, she described him. Tall white male, short dark hair, jeans, and a striped shirt. The officers instantly recognized the description. It matched a man they were actively searching for nearby. He had escaped from jail and was awaiting charges for murder. For years I treated those as two separate memories. My brother talking about the man in stripes standing in the hallway. My mom telling me about a fugitive outside her bedroom window. It wasn't until my mid-20s that I finally connected them. My brother wasn't imagining anything. He had unknowingly warned us that the murderer had been spending multiple nights watching our house. Some break-ins are about stealing, others are about something much worse. Because when someone tears through your house, flips over furniture, rips open closets, and leaves with only a single knife, you start to wonder if the robbery was never the plan. A few years ago, I was renting a house in Northern California, just outside the suburbs. It was the kind of place that felt perfect, close enough to the neighbors that you didn't feel isolated, but far enough away to have privacy and quiet. There were no streetlights in the area. At night, especially when the clouds covered the moon, the whole neighborhood became pitch black. I actually liked that. It made a little house feel peaceful, cozy even, until one winter night. I got home from work after a long shift with overtime, It was early evening, not even 7 yet, but the sky was already dark and overcast. As I pulled into the driveway, the only thing visible were my headlights, and when I stepped out of the car, I smelled cigarette smoke. That immediately felt strange. I had never smelled smoke anywhere near that property before. I looked around but saw no one, just darkness. I shrugged it off, went inside, took a shower and decided to go to bed early. I woke up later with a sudden certainty that I had heard something inside the house. At first, I wasn't alarmed. A friend of mine sometimes stopped by after work to use my shower before heading to night classes. I had even given him a spare key. He always texted first though, and I hadn't heard my phone. I reached for it on the bedside table. The screen lit up so brightly it nearly blinded me. This was before phones dimmed automatically, and that thing was bright enough to use as a flashlight. Squinting, I could only make out that it was sometime after 9. I couldn't tell if there was a message or not, so I set the phone down and called out my friend's name. Silence. Then, heavy footsteps exploded across the first floor. Someone was running through my house. I jumped out of bed and sprinted for the closet. By the time I got the door open and stepped inside, whoever was downstairs was already charging up the stairs. The second floor had only 3 rooms, my bedroom, a spare room across the hall, and the bathroom at the far end. Both bedroom doors were shut. The bathroom door was slightly cracked open. I heard the intruder thunder past my room, straight into the bathroom. That mistake may have saved my life. It gave me just enough time to reach up, shove open the attic hatch in the ceiling of my closet and pull myself up. I had barely gotten my legs inside when a person ran back out of the bathroom. A second later, my bedroom door burst open. I froze in the attic, crouched just beyond the opening. From below, I heard footsteps rush into my room, then suddenly stop. They didn't see me. Then the footsteps ran into the spare room. That room only had boxes, some weights, and a hobby table where I painted miniature models. Apparently deciding no one would hide there, they stormed back into my bedroom. The light clicked on, then the closet door was violently ripped open. I was only about a foot above them. From where I crouched, all I could see was from the knees down. Dirty blue jeans, frayed cuffs, old work boots. They stood there for several seconds. I held my breath, ready to fight if they started climbing up. Then they stepped back. A split second later, something crashed violently in my room. Then came a scream. Not fear, not surprise, pure rage. That scream was the most disturbing part of the entire night. It sounded like someone had completely lost control. The man ran back downstairs. I listened as my house was destroyed. Furniture overturned, objects thrown, glass and wood crashing, cabinets slamming open. I stood motionless in the attic. My phone was still downstairs in the bedroom, and I knew if I moved too early, he'd hear me. So I waited and counted, slowly. When I reached 1000, I finally climbed down. The first thing I saw was my bed flipped upside down. He had apparently tipped it over trying to find me. I couldn't locate my cell phone, so I used a landline beside the bed and called the police. I stayed upstairs until officers announced themselves from below. When I came down, the first floor looked like a tornado had gone through it. Chairs knocked over, sofas flipped, books, pictures and decorations scattered everywhere. Kitchen cupboards thrown open, canned food and boxes dumped across the floor, but as far as I could tell, the one thing that had been taken was a single knife from the wooden block in my kitchen. Police searched the house and found the side door had been forced open with something like a crowbar. Along the fence line outside, they found cigarette butts, foil and an empty pen tube. They told me it was commonly used to smoke meth. Their theory was that he had been hiding outside for some time, watching the house. And that's when I realized something chilling. When I got home earlier that night, the cigarette smoke I smelled was probably him, watching me arrive, watching me go inside, and waiting. Police advised me to stay somewhere else that night. I didn't. Instead, I blocked the door with a heavy shelf and stayed awake until sunrise, cleaning the mess. Every so often, I'd shine a flashlight along the fence line outside, half expecting it to seem still there. The next day, I had the door repaired. I installed motion lights around the house. I even ran a phone line into the attic so I'd never be trapped out there without a way to call for help again. Nothing else ever happened. I lived there for another 3 years without incident, but one habit never left me. Even after I moved, I still practiced getting out of bed, reaching the closet and climbing into a hiding space as quietly and quickly as possible. Because sometimes I still think about two things. What if I had been a few seconds slower? And what if he hadn't gone into the bathroom first? This happened in 2013, when I was 17. My family had gone to look at a house, 2 stories, sitting on a hill overlooking a river. It was honestly beautiful, quiet, a little isolated, but still close enough to town to feel safe. The owner met us there. He was an older man, friendly, talkative, the kind of guy who immediately puts parents at ease. He told my mom and stepdad he had built the house himself, and you can tell he was proud of it. I stayed back while he talked, just kind of standing off to the side, pretending to be on my phone. That's when I noticed it. There was a pause in the conversation, just a small break, and in that moment the man turned slightly away from my parents. His face changed. Instantly, the warm, friendly smile dropped into something else entirely. A look I still can't fully describe. Cold, hateful, almost predatory. It was like watching someone flip a switch. I don't think he realized I was watching him. My head was down, so I probably looked distracted. Then, just as quickly, he turned back to my parents, and the smile came right back, like nothing had happened. I told my mom later that something about him felt off, really off. She agreed it was weird, but brushed it off. Said maybe he was just awkward. We bought the house. The next weekend, my family went to church. I stayed home alone. It was around 11 in the morning, stormy outside, wind picking up. I was upstairs in my room when I heard it. A loud banging noise, rhythmic, coming from the side of the house. At first, I told myself it was just the wind hitting something loose outside. It lasted maybe 5 minutes, then stopped. Everything went quiet. About 10 minutes later, I heard movements downstairs. Slow, deliberate, chairs scraping, cabinets opening, the fridge door. Someone was inside the house. I didn't hesitate. I quietly locked my bedroom door, grabbed a baseball bat, and called 911. While I was giving my address, I texted my mom. Someone is in the house. I called the police. The operator told me officers were about 10 minutes away. 10 minutes. My mom texted back that she was on her way. She was about 30 minutes out. I remember thinking very clearly, if he comes through that door, I don't stand a chance. I was 17, 5'2", barely 100 pounds. I was sitting there, gripping a bat I knew could easily be taken away from me. Listening, tracking him. The house was narrow enough that I could hear exactly where he was moving. Then, footsteps on the stairs, slow, heavy, getting closer. He reached the hallway, then my door. The handle turned, stopped, locked, and then nothing. He didn't leave, he just stood there, on the other side of the door. I could hear him breathe, not moving, just standing there, waiting. It felt like forever, in reality maybe 10 seconds. Then the handle released, footsteps moving away, down the hallway, down the stairs. The back door opened and closed. 3 minutes later, the police arrived. The operators asked if I could let them in or if they needed forced entry. I knew he was gone. So I went downstairs and opened the door. They searched the entire house. Nothing. No forced entry, no broken locks, no signs of how we got in or out. When my mom arrived, she immediately asked my stepdad, "Did you change the locks?" He hadn't. But the part that still bothers me the most, the part that made everyone believe me, was the hallway upstairs. My mom had vacuumed that morning before we left. The carpet had fresh, clean lines in it, and now there were footprints, large ones, bigger than anyone in our family. They led down the hallway and stopped, right outside my bedroom door. The man who sold us the house died about a year later. I don't know if it means anything, but I never forgotten that look on his face. And I've never once lived in a house without changing the locks immediately, because sometimes the person who lets you in is the one you should be most afraid of. Sometimes the scariest part isn't knowing that someone broke in, it's realizing how close you came to something much worse. So tonight, before you go to bed, make sure your doors are locked, because sometimes the only thing standing between you and a stranger is a single lock.